Hey, everybody.
Sorry, Chris. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil with Mike King. And I've got Chris McDonough here again. And tonight we have a special guest with us, Linda from It's a Crime. Linda, how are you doing?
I'm doing really, really good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, man, we are so thrilled that you would come on. And to all of the subscribers on Linda's channel that have come over to test drive us, we are so appreciative that you would also come and give us a look over. Chris, what do you think of this thing tonight?
I think we have a superstar here who has a very good grasp on the zombies case here that we're going to go over. Linda, I mean, we've got to give it to you. There are some really smart people that get it. And Mike and I have been talking the last week or so, watching what you're doing. And so we're excited that you're here, and thank you for your time. And if anybody has not subscribed to her channel, make sure you are subscribing to her channel because she gets it. And, hit those buttons down there because she knows what she's doing. So how do you feel about coming on with a couple of old, gumshoes here?
I'm so excited. When you guys contacted me, I had already heard through the grapevine about you guys, and I was checking out some of the videos, and these guys are great. And so you guys reached out to me, and then it was like really weird because I had already thought about, doing something, right? And so I'm really, really excited, and I posted it today, and I'm just really happy to be here. And I think it's so cool that we can, chit chat tonight. So I think it's great.
Oh, that's so nice, Linda. We have really, this has been kind of a interesting journey for two guys that never really understood YouTube and this whole movement. I mean, in a month, we've had 6,000 people who have now subscribed, and we're seeing now friends of yours who are giving us a try, and we're so appreciative of them and those that have carried us along the way. And I don't know about you, but I'm really so I get so excited and so grateful for the advice that people give, the counsel they give. Even when they chew us out for something that we did wrong, it's just amazing to be able to collaborate with people from all over the world about something and to see the passion that people have to try to bring justice about.
Yeah, I think the community is small, really. It's big, but it's small. And you see people really just at the end of the day, they want to help people. And, you guys are new, but you guys are doing a great job. And I'm new too. I'm the new girl on the block as well. So there's some learning curves, but people are really great. And you just listen to what they're saying and some things, and they'll guide you the right way, and they'll guide you what not to do and that kind of thing. And, it's just a really great platform. I'm super grateful to be on here.
It's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, we're excited that this collaboration can happen tonight. Yeah. I think, we've all got, the right goals, right? We've got some of these things happening. This is, some of the stuff that Mike and I have been taking a look at on, the totality of what this has. So just out of curiosity, tee us up. Tell us where you're at with the Daybell case and Vallow, and where do you think this whole thing's going to go? And we'll kind of jump in and show you some things that we got going.
That's some crazy questions, Chris.
I know, that's my job.
Right now I'm diving into Charles Vallow. I have been diving into this case for months, doing several videos. One of the things that I think is important that cannot be left behind is Charles Vallow's story and his case, because I feel like it has stemmed from way further back than, September, when the children were killed. And I think there's a lot of hidden gems in Charles's story and what led up to that point. So right now I'm starting to do a series where I dive in and start exposing what happened that day. So the last video I did was about the statements. Today's video, which by the way is going to be tonight, I had some technical difficulties today, but I'm almost done it. So viewers are going to have it tonight. And that actually dives in more to Lori Vallow Daybell and her statement and the whole surrounding it. And I found a big part of the timeline that's wrong. And she's not telling the truth. So that's pretty much where we're at, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Well, I think we want to just kind of walk through a little bit of a timeline and level set. This thing, as we look online and try to capture what others are saying, has gone all over the map as far as where we are. And so we thought it would be nice and hopefully timely to go back to ground zero and start and kind of walk through this timeline a little bit and talk about these. And along the way, we're going to keep it really loose and try to just answer questions as people throw a question out. I in fact, just as we were starting, somebody was mentioning Mindhunter and John Douglas, and they were saying something about a book that I had written with my, actually both of our friends, a fellow named Greg, and it's called Predators, and I'm not trying to sell it because right now it's out of print. We're waiting for more to be printed, but it was kind of fun for those of you who are Douglas fans, and he is a gentleman. I just wanted to share. This is just kind of one of my proud moments. The foreword to this was written by John Douglas, and so really fun. And I've learned an awful lot from him and from Greg over the years in the area of profiling, but just so fun to have this stuff having some impact. The book Predators, actually, we wrote, Linda, to give people a sense and empowerment that while we talk about these really difficult cases and the ugliness of serial predation, that we can, through really minimal kinds of things, reduce our risk level or our chances of being victimized by somebody. And so we focus on a particular type of offender, and then we talk about the things that we can do in our everyday lives to reduce that risk. Because it would be a tragedy if we allowed predators and predation to stop the way that we go about our daily lives and the things that we are so excited about. One of our listeners actually said a day or two ago that they were going to call their sister and tell her to quit riding her bike because we were talking about how Suzanne Morphew's risk level, if in fact she truly was riding her bike, may have increased. And our response back was, this is not about making people fearful. This is about empowering us with the ability to say, if I'm going to go out and go to college and take night classes and it's dark outside, I ought to be walking and parking in a place that's lit. I ought to be walking with others. I ought to call campus security and say, I'm now walking from the social sciences building to my vehicle and I want a police officer there. Those things are just simple things that we can do that would dramatically reduce our level of risk.
Yeah. So Melody, thank you. And she gives you a shout out, Linda. So let's get into zombies. That's what she's asking. Okay. we're going to do that first. Let's do it. Let's just set the play here. So one of the things we do as investigators is we try to look for folks just like Linda. And because she has this analytical mind that I think everybody on her channel would 100% agree with me, because this old dog here has been watching some of the things that she has been putting out there. And as a homicide guy, you go, okay, I need to talk to this individual because she is seeing things that maybe I'm not seeing. Okay. So when we talk this evening, we're hoping that we can collaborate not only as friends and, it's a crime. I mean, we love that name too, by the way, it's off the hook. But at the same time, as a community, maybe we can find something that somebody else hasn't seen yet. And that's one of the things that we're hoping we can level set tonight, that we all walk out of this with something new. So Linda, what are your thoughts on that?
That's great. I think that's great.
Okay. So Mike, you want to get into the timeline?
Yeah, let's jump in and talk a little bit about this. The first thing, I guess, is to try to understand who the players are. And there are a few people we've left off. We tried to filter down to the most on-stage players throughout this little theatric event. Obviously, we have Chad and Lori, who are the focal point of everything that's going on. But if we were to step back and look at these players, we start seeing some relations. And one that really stood out to me, Chris, I mean, it looked like Chad and Tammy Daybell had a pretty normal relationship. We'll talk about that. In a pretty normal marriage, probably started out with all the right hopes and dreams. And it's happened so often in relationships where one party starts to go a little wonky and problems start to arise. In a completely different atmosphere, we have Lori Vallow, who is having marriage after marriage after marriage, and she's coming along. I went the wrong way here. Let me just move this forward here. But as we looked at it, we found some kind of interesting connections, and we're going to talk about those as we kind of go through tonight and theorize based on some of the things that we've seen. But I mean, let's just jump right to the first couple in this little situation, and that's Chad and Tammy. And again, what appeared to be just a normal relationship that started. What kind of things do we really know about her? We see a normal family, but for a number of, I think, almost 9 years, seemed to have a regular relationship. But along the way, some kind of goofy things start happening to us that really stand out. And the one that I wanted to just stop and pause on, Chris, and maybe talk about a little bit is this little opportunity that we saw happening in his life. Chad becomes this grave digger. Linda, what were some of the immediate things that you thought when you first heard this?
It's a different job, that's for sure. When I thought I was a grave digger, what? And I think the thing that really piqued my interest is that he enjoyed doing it. And I thought, well, that was different. I haven't dug in at a deep level to that, but I do know he spent quite a few years digging graves. And so I do question a few things about that. Maybe we can get to that in a minute when you guys want to, but I do question a few things because especially where he works. Because
tell us what you're thinking.
He was working in Springfield, Utah. Springfield, I believe it is called. Springville. Yeah. That's right. Springville, which is the same place as where Tammy was actually buried. And maybe that's nothing, but I find it weird that, I know they grew up there. I think they also had engagement photos taken at this cemetery as well, which is a little different.
Yeah, so there were some things that we found awfully interesting as well. Mm-hmm. Again, did he stumble into this job when he's going to college, or did he actually have some kind of a weird attraction toward cemeteries? And there certainly are. I mean, I remember as a young patrol officer driving through the cemetery and seeing people just sitting next to tombstones reading a book because they thought it was just a nice, comfortable place to sit, where somebody else might be completely creeped out by it.
Yeah.
But this guy, he talks over and over again about these spiritual experiences that he's having at the graveyard. And that starts to cause you to think a little bit about what's starting to manifest itself inside of his psyche. And, we all get creepy feelings and we can all start thinking that there's a boogeyman behind the bushes, but he starts hearing voices and he starts responding to them and starts writing about them and actually creates this book that he's reading in this image. Chris, I don't know. What were you finding about this?
Well, interesting. So this is what we would obviously, start classifying towards a suspectology, right? Who is this guy? And what strikes us first, what struck me first about this picture when Mike first showed this to me was the fact that he was so comfortable in his environment right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, here he is. I mean, going out into the backyard, for lack of a better term, laying down, having a book, and just kind of, putting the afternoon chill on, right? Like nothing else is going on around me. But then when you start thinking about what his job is, okay, and you start looking at some of that suspectology, so let's ask ourselves a couple of questions. And this is to all the crime fighters out there, right, on both of our channels, okay, and our families, both of our families, the evil family and the It's a Crime family, okay. So you've got him just sitting there, and you say, okay, so let's back up here for a second. What we would do in an investigation is what Mike we can talk a little bit deeper about, but so you get 10 filters of what we call profiling, right? One of them is suspectology. So you find a war room and you take a big piece of paper down, you put it up on the wall, and then you start asking the whys. Okay, remember, we keep repeating this, for everybody. And so you start asking, why would this guy, choose this? Why? And you keep going down that list. But part of that, one of the questions is, well, why would he choose this profession? Okay. And then once he's in that profession, you start looking at what starts happening around him, and you say, well, why is that happening? Okay. And you'll see here as we progress through this timeline, I think, some lights are going to start coming on, and hopefully folks have an aha moment. I mean, what's your takeaway? What's your thought process on just kind of putting this out there? Linda.
And maybe while you're thinking about that, Linda, let me add something else. The thing that becomes so interesting is sometimes these things just happen because it's part of life. Yeah. I remember interviewing a serial killer, and he was describing lions, and I later found a photograph that I had taken in Africa of some lions lying in rhino dung. And I was so intrigued by the fact that they were lying in them. And I said to the guide, why are the lions lying in the rhino dung? And he said, well, it makes perfect sense. A rhino is very slow moving, has bad vision. If they smell like a rhino, the prey are not worried about them. And then he paused for a second and he said, but also it's warm, and they like to lay in something warm when they're cold. So we see this in predators too. We see them do things that make perfect sense from a functional standpoint. They might help them be more successful in their crime, but it also might just be satisfying some other kind of weird itch that they've got somewhere. And so as we look at this now, we also think maybe he started out just as a kid in college that's working in a graveyard because that's the only job he could get, and it works around his hours. But does he then apply the principles and the skill sets that he learned later in life? And one of the things that we continue to wonder about is what interaction did he have with the medical examiners and other people? Because as police officers, when we investigate unattended deaths, we call, once we've decided that it's not a crime, we call the local mortuary, and they send people out who take care of the body and then start to prepare it. Well, these people are in constant contact with a local medical examiner who arrives on the scene and other things. So did they have interchanges where he starts to learn things too? Because we see some weird things happening with people dying later in his life. And the question comes about chemical induction and other kinds of things. And so, it just makes our mind just like start spinning out of control.
I think one of the things when I first heard of him being the sexton, and when I first actually heard about the kids and where they were found, and I knew about his background, that's where I went, oh dear, because it's almost like a connection that's way more than what we think it is. And that's when I start going back to, okay, wait a minute. We know he has 20 years worth of experience doing this, and he is so brazen to have them in his yard. I'm getting goosebumps right now because it makes me think, who else was there?
Interesting.
That's how I feel, is who else is there? Because was this a 20 years in the making? Was there other people? I know there's chatter about, a different case that people were talking about. However, it just right away made me go, wow, you are pretty bold to be in your own backyard to do something like that, but you got the skills for it. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, hey, yeah, I can do that in no time.
Now that's interesting, because from a behavioral perspective, where would you have a better chance of ensuring the safety of your kill? I hate to say it that way, but we see this in normal animal predation, where a bear will bury an animal knowing that that's going to be the place they return to kind of relive the experience. For them, it's obviously different, but we see this same kind of thing in human predators. Amazing. Gosh, we got to mention Chris, Sophie H. Thank you so much. That's really
thank you, Sophie.
kind of you.
And the other gal just before that for Linda, you're sending your fans are here. This is great. And a shout out to the true crime ladies with class and sass, and YT Sophie H, Crystal G, and finally Stephanie Harb. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Forgive me. I'm so sorry if I've made a mistake. Not intentional. Somebody told me I had dentures the other day. I'm like, dentures?
It's okay.
I've got dentures.
I'm like a guy, so it's all good.
Okay, so back to the zombies. Miss Sophie,
thanks, Miss Sophia. That's incredible. Thank you so much.
I'm curious, Linda. I mean, so we've got this guy now in the cemetery. Okay. You've kind of processed him pretty clearly here. So one of the things that I'm curious about is what Mike just said there for a moment is how much exposure did he have to some of the other police, medical examiners, all those other individuals, other funeral homes, etc. From picking up bodies, right? We used to call them the body snatchers. Okay. So when they show up, they also know, potentially sometimes if it's a natural or what the cause of death was, and if it's an unattended death, where I used to work, obviously you had to have the ME come in and an ME investigator and say, yeah, I'll sign the certificate, call him up, right? But what if and this is what I want your opinion on, what if he kind of started processing manners of death? Okay. So there he is, he's burying them. And now we start to move that pendulum forward. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
So are you saying he's processing the manners of death as he's working and learning of the manners of death? Or are you talking about preparing for Tammy, potentially?
You're on target. Keep moving. Yeah, I love it. I don't know. But when you see that picture, what struck me was here's this guy, sitting in a cemetery, very comfortable. Mm-hmm. And to Mike's point, this guy's being exposed to a lot of different things, and you start adding the delusional aspects of how things are going to start progressing here. What did you think when you just said Tammy? Where did you go with that immediately, internally?
Well, it's because he said the word cough. She went to bed with a terrible cough.
Interesting.
And yet he says, I woke up at 6 a.m. and she laid peacefully beside me and she had already died. Something to that effect. Well, if you go to bed with a terrible cough, you're definitely not going to have a fun time through the night sleeping. Clearly, she didn't make it through the night. But there was no mention from her dad, who she just spent time with, her mom and dad, that she had anything like that. She didn't have a cough. She wasn't sick. But I feel like he brought up the word cough because he needed the symptoms, or the, what do you call it?
Symptomology.
Yeah, he wanted that to match with her death. So he brings up, that he had a cough. The reason why I say that is I'm matching it also to his behavior with the children, because he's for some reason, he likes to say what happened, right? So he's texting Tammy saying, "Woo, what a day I had. I had to shoot a raccoon in my backyard, and woo, got to bury it in the pet cemetery." And he needs to tell it, like he just needs to say it. So I feel like with Tammy, he's saying, she just had a terrible cough, you guys, and she just peacefully died in her sleep. I think he needs that to match. If anything goes down, that her death has to match. Yeah, that's consistent with her having a cough. That's in my opinion.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Mike, what do you think?
I'll tell you, I mean, this is what our life was, is getting in the weeds and trying to dig through and look for that little golden nugget. And I love these comments. I thought, let's just step ahead though, and talk about Lori for a minute. Lori starts out in what appears to be like a pretty normal life too. She marries a guy named Nelson. They're married for a number of years. She then later divorces this Nelson guy, and but along the way, a couple of things kind of interesting happen. And if I can pull that up, the timeline, because we want to kind of keep walking on this timeline here, we can see that Chad starts working as a grave digger. Lori marries Nelson Yanes, and then a short time later, she divorces him. So clearly, she, getting into the relationship business is a little bit interesting. But it's not very long until she then turns around and marries William, and then she and William shortly get divorced. And so we see this kind of short period of time. They have a child along the way, and we have kind of chosen not to spend time talking about that innocent victim in this goofy mess. But then she and William divorce. And then all of a sudden, she comes up with Charles. And this was a question that I was wondering if you knew the answer to, Linda, and that was why he goes by Charles with the name of Joseph Anthony. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. So she doesn't marry Charles yet. She's now marrying Ryan, and that's when Tylee comes along. And again, it sounds like they're trying to make things work and do things, but it's obviously pretty rocky, and it goes through a period of time where Ryan files for divorce, then backs off and tries to reconcile, and then it just clearly is just too much to bear. And this is where I kind of jumped ahead. Tylee's born along the way, but then almost in a rebound, she jumps in with Vallow. And I just found that so interesting, the quick change of boom, boom, boom. And 2 kids later, 3 husbands later, we're now looking at Vallow. Had you done any looking into that?
Into Joseph?
Into those previous husbands? And
just that they're fairly quick, other than when she was with Nelson, it was like a year and a half. William, again, not very long. There's some stuff in there, like you said, we won't talk about, but there is some stuff. And then we go to Joseph. I've read some of the documents. I haven't dived into it because there's so much there that I've been concentrating on Charles and the task at hand, because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole. But there are a lot of things happening, and we know Alex attacked Joseph Ryan with a stun gun and then went to jail. So
we're going to talk about that in just 1 minute. So we see him kind of going through this kind of normal life, and she then meets and marries Vallow, and again, it seems like things are actually going pretty good, I guess.
Normal, yeah.
Yeah. And they make it quite a ways. And then they end up adopting JJ along the way. But this event that you just mentioned comes along. So yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. Chris, what's been the thing that you and I have been really chatting about?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, shout out to Dr. Edward, to Ron, to Pleasant Green, a couple others I think just popped up. Thank you guys so much for supporting not only our channel, but It's a Crime. Again, we are very grateful for that. So
yeah, and if you haven't had a chance to see Pleasant Green and the things that he has done for underprivileged people in the continent of Africa, you got to go there. What an amazing story that is.
Got to jump on there. So yeah, so here we are, and thank you again, Doc. We appreciate you. Julie,
that's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate you. So Alex, let's here we go. Okay. I mean, this is one of these situations, and Linda, this is what I was so intrigued watching your analysis of him. And I don't want to, give it injustice, to be honest with you, because I think you've nailed some of the pieces of this puzzle in terms of, from an investigative perspective and a behavioral perspective, because if you think about the dynamics of the family at this point, you have now, Tylee's involved, and Ryan, he's starting to get zapped, by the zapper, right? That's never a good sign, but Alex is starting to learn how to zap, if not he had learned it before that. Okay, so from a behavioral aspect, and Mike would give us a whole course on this, but it's kind of like one of these, we're just starting to put bricks, stacks of behavior, and it starts to process itself. Tell us about Alex from your perspective. What jumped out at you with him that you started to do the deep dive? And that video one, folks, guys, if you have not seen it, I'm serious. She really did a good job. And because this is actually, she beat us to it. She beat our thunder, because Mike and I were tuning it up for Alex, right, Mike? Were we not? We were talking, let's do Alex, because we knew where to go. And by golly, I turned the YouTube on, and there's Linda going, bag of chips and a soda too. And dang her, no, good for you. But so tell us about Alex. So where were you at with this guy in where he was headed? Yeah.
Well, so, and you're talking about the statement video that I just did.
Yeah.
So watching Alex, there's some clearly unhealthy things about him, but he goes after Lori. He's like that protector, right? And some people are even saying, I don't know, it seems to be, a step further of this unhealthy relationship. But he just has this unhealthy protector, I'll do whatever you tell me type thing. Obviously, when you have people jumping and running to Rexburg to go live there, dropping everything, doing these things, we now know what was done. But I just start going, there's more to this. Yeah. And when I started seeing, actually, it was the 911 call first, is the one that was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's a sinker, isn't it?
Because this is like, well, I'm just going to get and have some Cheerios, and then I'm going to get on. 911, yeah. I shot my brother-in-law, and it was self-defense. Hang on. Can you get me some peanut butter and jam? Like, you know what I mean? It's just, you might as well be talking about breakfast or whatnot. Like, it really, when I heard about that, it's ridiculous. The funny thing about that is, let's hear what else he says. And, the dispatcher's like, so, can you do CPR? Nah, I don't know how to do that. Like, well, because, in my opinion, he's already dead. Why would I resuscitate a zombie? So then I got my husband, because my husband has been a paramedic for 16, 17 years.
Mr. Linda.
Mr. Linda, as my community lovingly calls him. Now we call him Mr. Linda. They totally want a mug that says Mr. Linda. It's fun. Right, guys? It's fun. So I said, get in here. You got to listen to this, because I know you can't see it, but you got to listen to this and you tell me your professional opinion. He says, okay, well, I can't see it, but let me hear. He's listening. He's like, that guy is not doing CPR. That's what I thought. Same thing. Because you have your arms locked and loaded and you're doing one of these. Plus you're on the phone. Like what?
It's exhausting for anyone who's ever done CPR. It is exhausting.
And you're right. And so, and she's like, and 1, 2, 3. And he's just like, well, maybe I should get something to, just touch up my head a little bit, because he did that, right? He did that before the 911 call. So I started hearing that. I was like, come on, at least you could be like, I totally shot my brother-in-law. Like, I've been brother-in-laws with him for 15 years or whatnot, but he didn't even play it up. And so
and you know what's happening behind the scenes at the 911 center? Right? The dispatcher on the line is putting it on mute for a second and going, like that. Okay. Everybody on the line, calling the supervisor, you got to plug into this guy. Okay. So go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, because it's super ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then he comes out. So when I first heard that, I said, there is something not right here. Right. And that's before we knew much about the story, about the children, about anything. We just know this 911 call. And then watching the body cam and how this doesn't line up. And so I'm not going to fast forward, but just a little hint. This is where I started diving in, especially today, and ripping apart this timeline. And I truly believe that Charles was long gone before he made that 911 call, and he made sure of it.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I want to kind of step back and talk about behavior and precipitating stressors and other things for just a second, because what we see is a really interesting personality type with Alex that's exhibited long before Chad or becomes part of this picture or anything else, and he figures in very prominently with Chad later, but he's already shown that he doesn't mind being the enforcer. There's something that he's really getting out of this feeling of power and control that he gets by being this, and that he's needed in some ways. Could you imagine having such a mundane and motivated life that being an enforcer and beating people up seems like a good idea to you and something that gives you status? But it's clear. I mean, he's back in jail on letters talking about, give me some information, because I'm going to have other people in jail tune this guy up if I can't get to him personally. Mm-hmm. We see this event with the stun gun and this behavior kind of escalating. And imagine now his personality when he tries other methods, if in fact he truly planned on killing Vallow, he tries this stun gun thing in hopes that he can get him incapacitated and then hopefully do whatever he planned to do to kill him, if that's really what his angle was. He fails at it. Imagine what's happening in his psyche when he fails. Then he starts thinking about, how can I enlist help of other people to do this? And eventually he migrates. And I wonder how many other attempts or failed attempts there were in between, Chris.
Yeah.
Until finally he says, I know how I can do this. I haven't been able to do it physically. I haven't been able to do it through cunning. So the way I'm going to do it is with a weapon.
Yeah. And you have all that other emotional behavior that's built up into it, right? You've got all of the, him coming home, getting off the airplane, looking for his car, and his car's gone, calling the cops, hey, I think my ex-wife's gone, or my current wife at the time still, right? Right, Linda? They were still married at the time when the car, if I remember right?
They were, they were just on the verge of
separating.
Yeah.
right? Because
But they're clearly still married because she hasn't even met or started working with Daybell at this point. So
yeah. So you see, go ahead. I'm sorry. Say what you're going to say,
He
Linda.
was actually, she's already had him at the house at this point. November, she had him at the house for that weekend. This would be January, 2 months later, that she starts, accusing Charles of being Nick Snyder because Chad told her.
The zombie.
So this is in around that beginning of January, she stole that $35,000 from the business bank account. And this is when he was in Houston and tried to come back, and she stole the truck.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was getting her the help, or he was trying to get her help because he said she's lost her marbles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can sense that in his voice that he's still trying to save this relationship and somehow salvage it. I wanted to make one more point maybe before we move on. And that was, I just want to say, could you imagine if everything that I was theorizing about Alex is true? Can you imagine the sense of accomplishment and relief he has when he finally kills this man?
You know what? I totally agree with you. And not only that, they both have that. They both have that. And you see that day that Charles was killed. You see Lori smiling. You see Alex, he might as well been puffing his chest out. What a good job he did. So I agree with you. And when you look at Lori, it's almost like, the image that comes to my mind is like a Olympian gold medalist the day that they won. Like the way she looks like, I won. This is what I planned. This is exactly what I wanted to go down. It did. And we told the cops exactly how I planned it, and we're getting away with it. This is the look I see on her face. The same with Alex. If this was truly self-defense and it was truly something that, oh crap, I just killed my brother-in-law, I believe it would look a lot different. The wording, the response, maybe he's still kind of flat where he doesn't have too much emotion, but definitely the words would be different, in my opinion. So I see that, and you're right. Like when you see Alex, it's almost like he's getting, more built up with each and everything he does for Lori. And Lori's just like, this is great. He's doing what I want him to do. And that's just, I guess that's how I see it.
That is such a valid point. That is such a great point that you just brought up. Mike, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Please go. I'm just thinking there's a real sense of accomplishment when you are a puppet master.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention too, going back to Charles, when we saw him, if we look at his demeanor, he's in the first time, obviously in his other body cam. If you look at his demeanor, he's in a stressful situation. His wife has lost her marbles, according to him. Yet he's calm as a cucumber, just trying to figure this out. There's no enraged. There's no really that I saw. He just seemed like, I'm stressed. Guys, just help me out. I never not once saw him riled up. I don't think. Did you guys see that? Because it seemed to me he wasn't.
Yeah, no, it looked like somebody who was just accomplishing another business day. To me, I don't know, Chris. I'm just thinking. I'd like to pause for a second, maybe just hit a couple of the questions that have come in, and one of the critiques we've had, Linda, is that as we kind of drone on, that we ought to periodically say what we're talking about so people know what we're talking about. So maybe we can pause and do that for just a second, because I think this is maybe a good place to do that. Well, thanks so much for hanging in there with us as we talk about the Chad and Lori Daybell case and all of these wacky players within this. I like to refer to it as a theater as we look at these criminal events. Having you and your comments has been really an amazing experience for Chris and me as we've started on this journey of YouTube. And we're here with Linda from It's a Crime. And we're just so grateful again, Linda, to have you here and to have the kind of response from all of you. Sharon, thank you so much. We want to team up more and more and learn from each other, because we certainly do. I want to ask you to please continue to help us to grow this channel by inviting your friends to come in, and please, if you will right now, and you're not, subscribe and become a member of this channel so that we can keep you updated on things that we're looking at. And always, I got to say thanks to Casey and Tyler of Circa 3 for always making this thing kind of come together real well. But Chris, I don't know, what are your thoughts before we move into this next segment?
Well, and the other side of the coin is, if you are following us, go over there and hit It's a Crime, because that is a good move. You know, I think as we're going down this journey here with this particular case, you know, and as we start, you know, setting back and thinking about, okay, so, you know, how did we get here? I mean, there's been so much press on this. And I think one of the things that I would like to, you know, kind of explore here as we move forward is we know who the players are. I mean, I think everybody's beat the players to death. And that one journalist in Idaho, he's done an incredible job. Nate, is it Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic job, just kind of, you know, keeping us all abreast as to what's happening on the ground. From a PD perspective and an investigator's perspective, some of the things that I think we're going to start seeing, you know, come to the surface here is, if we look at the cast of characters here, and let's talk about, you know, indignity real fast, JJ. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Who is JJ in terms of a victimology to these two, you know, predatorial type of individuals, right? JJ is attached primarily to Charles. Okay, so Lori comes into the environment here with Charles. JJ comes into the environment, i.e., they get married and all this stuff, and JJ is now, you know, adopted in. Okay, but in reality, okay, when Daybell comes along, when Chad comes along, JJ becomes somewhat of a problem.
Yeah.
Right? What's your feelings on that? What's your thoughts on that you've dug in from where you've dug into this?
Yeah, I think once Chad comes in, all responsibilities that Lori did have, she doesn't want anymore, it seems. Mm-hmm. It seems that now, all of a sudden, she regards JJ as Charles's niece's drug baby. And that's more than once that she said that we know of. And I think a lot of things, because as soon as she meets Chad in person, all of a sudden now she doesn't want Charles anymore. She wants to go on her 60-day hiatus and take off. She really wants to do something different with her life. And she keeps repeating in these police reports how, you know, she left for 60 days because she wants, well, she said 30 days in the report, saying, you know, I just want to teach him a lesson on what I do all day and taking care of a special needs child. So I just think at this point, something happened where she shifted. She saw something in Chad. They were going to do a mission together like he really wanted. And JJ was, unfortunately for him, he was in the way. And she started showing the actions of taking stuff away from him, his iPad, his service dog, his whatever she could, and to cripple Charles too, right? Taking $35,000 and leaving him. He has, you know, on Friday he has payroll to pay. So just, yeah, that's how I feel. It's just something that they're in the way now. They're in the way of what she needs to do and who she wants to be.
Interesting, Mike.
No, I'm right with you. the fact that these children become pawns in and just need to be moved out of the way because they are part of a bigger plan. It's really interesting. It's about this time too that you talked about the fact that Lori has now met and introduced Chad to Charles, and they're starting to kind of go through this relationship, but he starts receiving revelation about this time. And that's what everybody says. I think he was thinking he was receiving revelation when he was back in the bottom of a grave digging it and was meeting people. And I think he found such success in turning eyes with that it started to become a business plan for him.
Yeah.
But it's about this time too that Lori becomes absolutely obsessed with this guy, and what a remarkable skill set he has, in my opinion, to recognize the weakest among him that he can manipulate. Now, I think she is an incredible manipulator as well, and it was probably like two high power executives trying to figure out who's going to be in charge. But I honestly believe this guy promises her something that no one else has been able to ever figure out, and that is what, Linda? It's this additional light and knowledge with God, this place of prominence in eternity, this power and dominion that's going to come from moving people forward into exaltation, and all of these wacky ideas that he bestows upon her if she just does things the way he wants them to.
Right. And they have that, it's like the perfect storm, really, because like you said, both of them are manipulators, but very different. So what he brings to the table, she eats up, and what she brings to the table, he seems to eat up as well.
Yeah, and then you have the collateral damage in the middle. So how do you get to the end, right? So in a criminal mind, obviously, right, where they, I think, there's a couple of things we need to consider here. Okay, we need to look at, really what can Alex bring to the table here?
Yeah.
Okay? Alex can bring to the table, the fact that, she's able to manipulate him, has been manipulating him all of her life. She's that sister that's hanging, your little brother up and doing this, getting all the quarters out of his pockets. Okay. And trust me, I know my sister did that to me when I was younger. So I get that, sister. I'm teasing, but I love you, Muffy. So anyway, the other side of this is you've got this personality. You have Chad, who is, obviously he's delusional at some point. I mean, he's putting a portal, a religious portal into her closet, let's commune through the portal.
You got to admit, Chris, that's pretty cool though, to give that kind of a gift to somebody.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, that's my wife is now going to hold me to a higher standard, so this idea of, this communications portal. So obviously some of the things and some of the behaviors that are being displayed, which by the way is really scary when you have a whole bunch of people also saying, you know what, he said, like Melanie, right? Gibb, don't misunderstand me. Okay. Well, yeah, he kind of put a portal in her closet. It's kind of like, seriously, anybody else with portals in their closets? Let's kind of,
We're calling them portal potties. We do. We call them portal potties on my channel because
portal parties.
Jail now. It's the portal potty.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you've got all of these dynamics coming together, and so we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, who's in the way? Who are the problems, right? Her daughter obviously is, she's much more difficult to move quickly out of the scenario. Okay. Mm-hmm. JJ, to your point, okay, those are what are called isolation behaviors. Okay. So what a suspect will do, and Mike, you can tap into some of the isolation behaviors on, some of the sociopaths and how they, separate victims from reality, right? To kind of draw that sense of peace down and that sense of identity. Okay. So what she's doing is she is removing his identity, okay, from JJ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that takes a very sophisticated thought process. She's not delusional during those moments, right? She is making conscious decisions to lower the stress levels of this child, okay, and simultaneously raise the stress level so that she can gain more control. Okay, does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm going with this?
I think so.
She controls him, okay, by all these couple of years, everything is normal. Chad comes in and suggests, well, what are we going to do about JJ? I mean, I'm not saying that's what happened, but at some point she flips the switch and says, you know what, Charles, I'll take care of JJ. You can't take care of him. And this was kind of the fight that night when he got back from Houston and he was trying to get into his own house. He makes a very clear comment that, look, I have reported her.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is not on schedule anymore right here. I'm trying to get into my own house, but why? I'm trying to find JJ. I want to make sure my kids are okay, i.e. him, right? Okay, so she takes full advantage of manipulating that scenario right there, okay, in totality. Okay, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
I totally agree. I was just saying I agree.
Right, but behind the scenes is the more, in my opinion, and Mike, this is where I'm going. Kind of set it up here. Is the the real evil? Okay, we look at pure evil and we look at evil. Okay, Lori is evil. Okay, and she could lean towards the pure evil. Okay, but Chad is pure evil. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons why I think that. I won't give them just yet, but Mike, what are your thoughts on the two the dynamics of JJ, Lori, and Chad at this point in the play?
Well, I think what it boils down to, in my opinion, is two selfish individuals who are creating a world of problems around them that they have to just get rid of so that they can go off and be whatever it is they think they're going to be when the end of the world comes, which unfortunately apparently didn't happen last week or the week before. But the children, I think it was really important for Lori, this is my personal opinion, to take a responsibility for JJ, because this is, again, my opinion, just thinking outside of the box and thinking as a behavioralist. If you think of what a little bit of fast forwarding here, what happens with Charles and with Tammy and the life insurance policies that are put into place by each of those players, thinking that they might be the recipient of those, and Chad was in the case of Tammy's. What better way to justify Lori's need for Charles's entire amount of money? Maybe she knew that he had transferred the beneficiary to someone else, but if she could prove, hey, I'm responsible for these children, I need that money to put into trust to keep them in good shape. That's just something that just continues to kind of grind at me because I think we need to follow the money a little closer than we have been on this thing. But that those children just become pawns in getting what she wants overall and what he wants overall, if in fact they were responsible for killing these kids. And it could be just some wacky circumstance that somebody else buried them in the backyard and all kinds of things. But But no, I think they are pawns, and we need to really look at that and look at why would they be pawns, because she has no invested interest in JJ. That little boy was brought in to try to help him and help a family member. Charles was completely committed. Charles would have taken that boy. He was obviously concerned at the day he died. He was there for him. But there was a particular reason why she would be better off with JJ than without him, and I think it was the money.
Yeah. Very money driven, very obviously she created such havoc the day that that Charles's truck was stolen. She wanted to take all that money, but she wanted to cripple him too and teach him his lessons. But I do want to touch on Chad, because I feel like what a cunning, sly fox this guy is, because he comes traipsing into her life. Lori, we've been married before. He knows she reads all his books. He works his way in there, but he's just, he's lightly manipulating at first. Actually, I think it's largely, but in his mind, he's just, putting the feelers out there, because he sends her that chart, that light and dark chart. JJ was still light at this point. He's still light. So he rated Tylee as dark, because I'm sure Lori's having a chit chat to Chad saying, listen, this girl, she's a teenager. She drives me crazy sometimes, as teenagers does. Oh, yeah. Dark. Oh, she told me a little bit about Charles's ex-wife. I got to rate her as dark. So when you go through that chart, all the people that I believe that Lori has some issues with, Chad notes it and puts it in. So it reinforces, yeah, I knew it. That's exactly like what they're like. So he's like, she's starting to dig this stuff, Let's take it a little bit further. We have missions to accomplish together. So he plants these little seeds, and this is the guy with the no muffler. I talk about him all the time, every day. He plants these little seeds, and he's like fishing, right? He's casting his rod, he's rolling her in. And then she's just like, okay, I got to get rid of Charles because I'm kind of digging Chad. So I'm digging Chad. I got to get rid of Charles. Okay, we're good. I got kids. I have things to do. I'm going to go on my 60-day hiatus. And then he's, on second thought, Charles is Nick Schneider. He was light, but now he's not anymore. Because why? He needs to he needs to win what he wants to win. Nowhere does it say that Chad's family zombies or they're dark or they're light, because that's not part of the agenda. The agenda is, I want Lori. I don't want anything around it. Lori's going to feed into my crap. And that's just, I mean, that's so simple to say, but at the same time, that's what I see. I see him roping her in because he sees, let's face it. When he tells a woman that he's been married, that they've been married 5 times before, she's not the first person he's working on her about that. That's not the first person. He's done this and tried to manipulate. I don't know how, but he's done this to many, many, many women, and he's using his gifts to do it because, in my opinion, if he told me I was married to him 5 times, I'd be like, girls, let's go. We're leaving. This guy's a creep, right? And a lot of people in here, if you guys are women here, I'm sure you could say the same thing. So I just feel like he's putting the feelers out, and this one, he's striking gold in so many ways. And it's the money, it's the power, it's the, I spoke about this a little bit about my Secret Society video. It's just all these things wrapped into one. And I just feel like, man, is he sly. And she's so manipulative too in different ways. They have different gifts that they both give each other. And it's just unfortunately, horrifically, the worst storm. And Alex is one he's Lori's brother. He'll do anything for Lori. So this is like the perfect thing. He feeds into this zombie idea. He's thrilled about it. He's thriving on it. Now Charles is dying, and now all this other stuff happens. So money, greed, power, all these things wrapped up in one.
So let's kind of jump ahead, because things start really rolling fast now. We've kind of slowly walked down the pathway, and a few people we got rid of over time, but now we got to really start moving this thing forward. And we see this often in criminal behavior. where they start out very organized, but they become disorganized as the event goes on. And I see this happening here, where there's a lack of patience to continue working. This idea that we've maybe gotten away with something, and they clearly had, but now they're starting to move a little quicker. And if we were to go back to this timeline, I want to just focus at the bottom of the timeline on the entire span of time. And you'll see there were little points along the way that are happening, and you can kind of see them down here, an event here, an event there. But all of a sudden, things start really ramping up once we hit 2019 in the fall. And if we go to the top of this, we see now that Charles ends up getting murdered in his home. And of course, it's listed as a self-defense shooting. But let's go back now to the sidewalk. And Chris, I saw someone earlier commenting about the police officers interviewing him. Maybe just share a minute of what it's like to be that officer, first responder, knowing the training you have and the opportunity that you have to gather really valuable evidence.
Yeah, great question, Mike. So, obviously the first, flow of information that's coming in, the first, you're going to get two sets of two stories. You're going to get a verbal story over the dispatch, and you're going to get on the what they call the mobile MDT, the written story from the reporting party. And at this time, the call comes out as probably, shots fired, subject on the line, I've got the shooter on the line. So the officer initially is going through a tactical scenario, because the dispatcher is feeding information back while the officer's responding and saying, hey, the suspect or subject is, in the house. And the one thing you don't want is the subject walking out of the house yet until you have a position of concealment and or cover. Okay, so that's the first thing that they're processing. The other thing is, where do I park in relationship to the house? Because they don't know what they're dealing with yet, right? You have a crazy guy on the phone, at least, who's very very calm, very cool, but only the dispatcher can hear that. Okay, so immediately you see when they pull up, they take a position of advantage. One of the officers goes behind one of the cars, and they start, they tell dispatch, okay, have him come out. Okay, so now you start seeing Alex coming out in this video, and one officer, you can see him, he's drawing down on him, okay? And the other officer is just, I think he's holding his weapon here on the right side. You can't really see it from the body camera, and he's doing this, okay, and he's giving him commands. Okay, well, this is a very high stress situation, but what struck me immediately was the officer that was directing him immediately picked up on his demeanor. Okay, because he just kind of comes out, he's got the cell phone in his hand, he's real cool, and to your point, Linda, right? Hey, yeah, dispatch has just said, hey, we got a dude that's been shot in here, still got the guy on the line. And once they say, have him come out, basically that's kind of a flip, a switch, right? You want okay, you're on the scene, you see what's going on. You hear the double click, click, click in the body camera thing. Well, that's typically, it could be either a reset on the Axion body camera, or it could be an emergency traffic, all units, emergency traffic only, meaning nobody say anything. Okay, I'm in a tactical situation now. So their first responsibility is their own life, number one. Number two is protect anything around them in case he's got somebody else in there that they don't know about yet, right? Long story short, they get him out, and immediately you see the officer go into a Q&A in training, okay? One of the techniques that cops or police officers learn is what they call the read technique of interrogation. And what the read technique is because you don't know what you have, and let's say you have a suspect like Alex, okay, who's just capped a couple of rounds in a guy and he's laying in the living room with a bat next to him. Okay. But this officer doesn't know that. Okay? So you see him start asking questions in an open-ended presentation, okay, where he says, yeah, so where are you from? Give me your ID. And he's trying to ID him real quickly. And then he starts peppering him with questions. But what he does is he presents to him, okay, almost an analogy of, let's see if this guy grabs us. So what happened? Okay. Well, I thought you said she didn't have the bat. Okay. Maybe, you're confused, right? And what's happening is you always have to remember, because I worked homicide, 13 of my many, many years, right? And hundreds of cases. Okay. The one thing I always loved was that officer who set the stage. So when that guy came into the interview room, you are able to say, yeah, but I thought you told Officer Franking, A, B, C, or D. Why are you telling me something different? So automatically, without them knowing, okay, they're already sinking the ship. Okay. I will put dimes to donuts. Chandler is waiting for Lori. Okay. I think we're going to start seeing, as this thing starts to progress, Chandler homicide, they're going to drop a piece of paper on him and say, welcome to the big show. Okay. You may have a couple of misdemeanors down here and maybe a couple of felonies for, doing what you did, but we're going to take you to the rodeo now. Okay. And well, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm going to go on bingo card for 100. Okay. On Chandler. Okay. Because this is not their first rodeo. And I saw it immediately with that first responding officer. Now, to the untrained eye, that looks like, why didn't he ask this or why didn't he go there? And it's a critique, right? And that's okay too. Okay. But in reality, what that officer was doing was teeing him up for the investigators. I'll put money on it that responding officer that was there was probably an investigator at some point in his career and probably just either got promoted and got pushed back to patrol. I don't know that for a fact, but just the way he was peppering them, I really thought that was an interesting dynamic. And because what happened, right, Lori? I mean, you tore it apart. You absolutely eviscerated Alex, and rightfully so, right? Well, I mean, what's your takeaway? I'm sorry, I talked too much on that.
No, it's okay. My question on that is, I can see that being a tactic, but I'm curious why he wouldn't let him from the get-go, maybe even just one thing to answer on his own. Like when he's saying to him, because he says, well, he was threatening me, or even talking about the gun. Well, I went to the room and I put my gun there, or I grabbed my gun. Oh, then what? And then what? And there's one point where he says, oh, you just didn't think about that? Or no, I didn't even occur to me. So instead, why wouldn't he just ask him certain questions, wait for the answer, but then some peppering, reel him in? You know what I'm saying? Is that not part of that tactic?
No, those are great questions.
Great questions.
And those are things that I think we'll see more unfold at some point. And it always makes you ask the same question of, if you had time after the assault to go into a room and get a weapon, why didn't you just go out the window if you're fearful of your life? You're the only one in the home, apparently. I mean, there are lots of things that you can start to theorize, but to go into a room when you think you're going to be hurt and then come back out with a weapon, that becomes a really interesting question. I think you do such a cool job on tearing apart some of that interview with Alex that we ought to just let that happen, and what happens tonight on when you release your next clip, and maybe just talk about the fact, if we can go to this timeline for a minute and continue to bake this pie, because now this thing is really going. This fellow has been murdered, for lack of any other term that I feel comfortable using, and now we're seeing that people just kind of move on with their life. And we talked about earlier with you, Linda, the behavior of Lori and the behavior, Chris, I'd like you to hit on of Tylee when she's interviewed by the police about this. Do you remember how Lori was reacting, Linda, when police were talking to her?
How can we forget? Right away, she has this smirk on her face. Like I was saying earlier, she just has this happy feeling like victory on her face. I did do a video where I talk about this email that she wrote to Chad saying it's by Charles. And I feel like this is all part of it. Like this was a plan before, and this is her aftermath of going, yes, I got it. I'm $1 million richer. He's no longer in my life. I don't have to deal with him anymore. I'm one step closer to Chad. And I think it's similar to Alex. They just have this same thing, but I think they have a goal in mind. And I think that's what you're asking, right? Her demeanor.
It's really interesting to me, yeah, because we see this sense of accomplishment, relief. I finally have been able to figure out how to resolve this problem. If they believe truly that these are zombies, imagine the relief you would feel. But if they're going to try to use that for a defense that they were crazy and believed they were zombies, they should have been saying to the police at the scene, holy cow, we just killed a zombie, dudes, you know,
right.
You ought to be thanking us. And then we see just a little shift and difference in Tylee's behavior. Chris, you and I spent some time talking about that.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, obviously she becomes, you know, the next problem. And you know, I've watched all the videos. I've actually sat in those rooms with, you know, very similar situations. And it's easy for us, you know, looking at all those videos and say, you know, A, B, C, or D. Okay. It's really difficult when you are dealing with, you know, somebody, you know, who is a manipulative personality, or, you know, a sociopath, or, you know, even a psychopath for that matter. Okay. Where I think folks, and I'm going to go again, bingo card for 100 here. Okay. Is where folks are going to be really surprised is when, remember the investigation in Arizona went to another team. Okay. And they started looking at this. Mike and I sit on a foundation called the Cold Case Foundation. And quite frankly, John Douglas is the executive director of this foundation. When all of these things start coming in for these unsolved crimes across the United States, the first thing you want to do is slow down. Okay? And start, you know, putting an investigative process into play here. And that's what happened when all of the information was digested into that case. And immediately when somebody went to the DA's office and said, look, we've got two problems here. Okay. We can't eliminate A, B, C, or D. Okay. This guy's saying it's justified. We don't think it is self-defense, but it could be self-defense. Okay. But the evidence isn't pointing that way. Oh, and by the way, did we tell you there's a couple of more dead people involved in this now?
Right.
Okay. So they took a step back, to their credit, okay, and said, okay, you know what, let's look at some of the other dynamics that are really important here. Okay. Where was the bat bought? Who purchased the bat? That'd be one of my first questions. Okay. Where is there a video at a sports store somewhere, like, you know, Play It Again Sam or whatever, you know, Dick's Sporting Goods? Is Alex in there buying the bat? Is Lori in there buying the bat? Okay. I've had cases. I had a caper where a guy, you know, destroyed his whole family, you know, and, you know, and long story short, they ended up finding, you know, we ended up finding where the particular weapon was purchased. Okay. The bat is crucial here. The keys, okay, the cell phone, the rental car, all of those pieces of evidence, okay, and they're evidence, okay, go towards the whys, okay. When what we see in investigations a lot of times, and what a lot of people do, and why investigators get stuck in this tunnel, is they start asking again, and I'll repeat this for quite some time. They start asking the hows. Well, how did this happen? Okay. How did this take place? Well, why, how is this? Okay. Instead, if you say why, and so let's back it up. Okay. You now have Charles coming out of, or Alex coming out of the house, and the question to him is, so why were you here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what time did you get here? And you start going in that lane, and if you go rewatch that tape, okay, that officer is setting him up to lie. Okay, lying is a tool. It is a really good tool for investigators. Okay, ask Ted Bundy. Okay? Right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I wanted to mention too, and I think one of the listeners pinged on this, mentioning that the Vallow was an athlete. He actually was a minor league ball player playing baseball, I think, at one point.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be unnormal for him to have a bat. But again, that house was pretty empty. So what of his personal possessions did he really have there becomes really critical in something like this.
Yeah, but the bat came from Tylee. She had the bat for protection.
Yeah, there we
Said
go.
he
That's
had it at Alex's house as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's where I was trying to go. Is some people are starting to theorize that it could have originated with Charles, and there are pieces of evidence that would suggest otherwise. And so this idea of where does the bat originate and how does it end up in that house becomes really an important question. Yeah. And we'll continue to have interesting questions surrounding, again, somebody with a bat threatening, and so you're going to walk past them and go into a bedroom and get a gun and return, and it would always be smarter to come to a bat fight with a gun. I can buy that, that's acceptable. But if you're really frightened for your life, you don't go back and have a standoff. But we got to keep thinking about this fact that Alex keeps playing into these positions of being the enforcer, if in fact that's what happened. And if we go back to our timeline, Charles is now dead. And in that timeline, we now see something really ramping up. And Chris, we had talked about, and Michelle, thank you so much for supporting us like this. It's really nice, and it's awesome having your friends come and see us. Linda, this is great. But we also talked about the fact that Tylee is in a position that she's probably seeing things that makes her a real threat to the success of this organization. You want to touch on that for a minute, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she is now in a very vulnerable situation because she is also, she's witnessed, in terms of the circle of influence, Alex, just whack, Charles. Okay. And so she knows that whole scenario's gone down. And she also knows that, she's mom is in this, controlling, situation where she's able to manipulate her daughter quite successfully. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, she has this fear that she becomes, the next zombie, right? And she makes that comment, right? I mean, I think we all know, she turns and she goes, "Mom, not me." But what was interesting is in Lori's perception of her daughter, that happened years ago when she was 12 or 13, is when she started to transform into a zombie, okay, in her mind, okay? And I think you pointed it out, Linda, in your analysis of this, where, that's just, teenage girls growing up, and they're difficult, okay? Well, they are, okay? And now, we though have, at the same time, what are the circle of influences that Lori is under? And of course, we start cycling back to Chad, right? And we start cycling back to some of the spiritual dynamics in terms of the delusions and some of the, the portals. We can go back to that, but I'm not going to beat that horse. But Tylee now knows that she's on a collision course. She also knows that her Alex, we obviously learn at some point she potentially could have been the driver in the Jeep of taking out the ex-husband of Melanie, right? The cousin, right? Where the sniper or the silencer was stuck outside of the Jeep. The vehicle had been waiting there a couple hours. The shot goes off, misses him. Okay. And Mr. Boudreau, I believe is his name. He's able to talk about it today, right? So, and by the way, he's still probably looking over his shoulder going, okay, one's down, but there's still another problem here somewhere. So she is the most vulnerable in relationship to the control issue now, okay? Not JJ. So we have a shifting taking place of control, okay? It's kind of like when, a serial in a behavioral analysis aspect, Bundy used a cast for a reason, right? For controlling of his victims, okay? In this scenario, we have Lori using her mind, okay, as a tool, okay, by pushing her daughter into the environments that put her in a very, very vulnerable position, which sets up the next play in the timeline, okay? And by the way, Chandler has not forgotten about this. I want to keep reminding everybody here, okay? Because I know we've beat the PD pretty good, and that's okay, okay? But I think everybody's going to be surprised. Okay, I'm going bingo card another 100 here. Okay, at some point there's going to be some paper dropped because Lori knows it's coming. Go ahead.
Well, no. So I want Linda, I want to just flip to the timeline again, and I want you to just kind of talk to me about your feelings of these two photographs in Yellowstone. Now we gotta start moving forward to. I mean, wasn't this amazingly fortunate that Alex got to pose with these kids with a big smile on his face, and Tammy did, showing what a loving family they all are?
Yeah, my question when I saw that, was this a memento or was this a memory? So when I first saw it, meaning like, are they taking this picture because they're capturing this is what's happening before, or they're actually capturing it as a memory? So you know what I'm saying? Like, just because they knew what was going to be happening that day, were they taking it for one last shot, or were they taking it for one last shot? I think it's interesting though, the FBI did not release that picture. They released the one where the kids were like scowling. JJ, you could only see a profile shot. And Tylee, you saw her look at her mom like, whatever, that kind of like look like, it's hard to explain, but just kind of one of like that. And so what was weird was they had released that picture first. We saw that for months. I made a video, and then and I was talking about it. I was like, look, this means this is her last day, how she was. The next day, the FBI puts out this picture of what you're seeing is smiling. So my question to you guys, because this is very interesting to me, why would they put out a picture of them scowling when they're searching for the children and putting it out to the public? But we're not seeing that picture for months, and they had both these pictures.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I don't know the answer behind what the thinking was on what pictures. It may have just been practical that they grabbed one, not even thinking, and said, "Hey, we got to get a press release out and get it out." There may be completely other reasons. One thing that I would just pitch back to you to maybe think about and respond to is maybe a third scenario too, of whether your comment on mementos isn't this photo with happy faces a great defense as well.
That too. That look at, they're smiling. Why would I do anything like? But that wasn't the first one that they put up. Have you seen the scowling picture?
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen that picture. Chris, have you?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, go ahead.
It it's weird to me.
Well, there's also another mindset into that, right? Is to level set Lori. Okay, remember it's kind of like, what do you mean he hit you in the head with a bat? Okay. Hey, what do we got? What kind of photos we got here? Okay, well, let's process this. How is she going to react? Okay. She's going to look at that and go, well, that's
terrible picture. Where are you guys putting that picture
on? Okay, so that's what they want to see.
Okay.
Okay, they want to push her button. Okay, these children are missing. Well, okay, who do we think did it? Well, the last people we have is, Lori and Chad. Okay, all right, let's push some buttons. Click. Okay, I had a caper. It's kind of close to this where we had a suspect who was watching the news. Okay, and the sheriff came out and said A, B, C, or D about one of the victims that they were looking for. I'll just tell you, it was Wesley Allen Dodd in Washington State, who was a serial child killer. And Dodd had kidnapped this last victim's little boy named Michael and taken him back to his house and turned the news on. And when he turned the news on, I interviewed Dodd at Walla Walla State Prison on death row up there. And he said, when I saw the sheriff come up and he started talking about all the things that they were doing and a couple other things, I knew exactly where I could go with the kid. I could take him across town. He did. He took him across town and bought him a Happy Meal at McDonald's and then came back to the house and slaughtered him. Okay. So when these guys put these things out, there is a process behind it. Okay. I can assure you that. And so with this situation, I think it was a good move, because what happens on the second one when they put the kids all happy-go-lucky? Okay. Well, now she has to defend both of those. To Mike's point, in a trial, you're going to have somebody, a behavior analyst probably, or a behavior analysis guy from the Bureau, from the BAU, get up there and say, yeah, well, this is what we were thinking. Okay. And yeah, it worked. Okay. Because, if she had a sense of compassion about her, right, you may have seen a response, hey, what? Just out of curiosity, this is my daughter. She's missing. Why would you put that picture in the paper? Okay. But they didn't get any of that, did they? Bingo.
So Linda,
put that in the win column.
Yeah. So let's go. What happens to Tylee at this point then?
That day?
Yeah. Go, Linda.
Yeah. The day comes to an end, and what happens to Tylee?
So the day comes to the end at Yellowstone. They go pick up some food right there at the Yellowstone exit. They drive back, and then the interesting night begins for Alex and the parties.
And it's only like an hour plus minutes. I mean,
I
know this area very well. It's a short drive. Yeah,
an hour and a half. They get there, I believe it's near 8 o'clock. I have to review the timeline again. They get to Lori's. Alex stays there for a bit. He zips to the corner store or the quick gas station type thing. Spends, I believe it was 10, 15 minutes there. Comes back to Lori's. Leaves again, goes to his apartment, and then comes back at 2:42 a.m. to Lori's place.
Yeah, interesting. The cell pings, Chris, was it he went to a Maverick, I think, and then to a Taco Time or something.
Yeah, they pinged him on various and then they get him going back to the apartment, and now right. And now Tylee.
Did we ever get CCTV from the gas station or the fast food restaurant?
Yeah, I don't know.
So we don't know. We don't know if Tylee's with him or not at that point, or do we?
We just know that 2:42 a.m. he's at Lori's, and at 4:42, I think, or 4 something, he's back at his apartment. He stays there till 9. He climbs into his vehicle and then drives to Chad's property. After that, he stays there for 4 hours, just before noon, before lunchtime, apparently gets a little hungry and goes to the taco place.
That's where that comes in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Taco
so
Bell.
that's just before, I believe it was 10 minutes before noon or something like that. Then he gets to the taco place. So he was there for almost 4 hours on Chad's property.
Right. So all the phone pings put in there around the fire pit. We've got the raccoon story. We've got the other text messaging from Chad, to Tammy saying, "Hey, oh, by the way, I just had to shoot a raccoon," et cetera. But I'm going to be surprised if they shot these kids out there in broad daylight. I think there was a garage. And obviously you have one of the victims being wrapped up with duct tape, plastic, et cetera. So that is a very controlled, organized, type of, situation, right? And so you're going to need some room for that. You're going to need room to process, the work, for lack of a better term. Okay. And then you're also going to have, I know there's some evidence, some horrific evidence that, this young lady, her body was desecrated and, burned. Okay. That's horrific. Okay. Now, Chad is a player in that, obviously. Okay. Alex is just your typical, hey, let's pull this guy, Lori and Chad. Let's use Alex as our go-to here. Okay. Yeah. But I have a thought for you. Okay. Alex is not connected to JJ, but Alex is connected to Tylee. I have a theory to think about. I think Chad whacked JJ, and I think Alex whacked, I think Chad whacked the other way around, right? I think Chad took out Tylee, okay, and Alex took out JJ, because there's no emotional connection between Alex and JJ. Okay, this is Charles's history. Okay, so but there is an emotional connection between him and his niece. Okay, now that photo becomes significant back at Yellowstone. Okay, and what we would call potentially as a token, okay, for a killer. Okay, they want to process. Oh yeah, this. I want to remember the good times. Okay, right. Just before Chad took her out. Okay, now that's why I think there's other problems coming here, not only on top of the, the bodies being discovered at the property. Okay, but there's going to be some type of other forensic evidence of some sort that are going to tie. Maybe they have the weapon that was used with the silencer. Okay, that is a very interesting weapon to have, especially out in the country. Okay, and maybe Chad didn't have a silencer, and his was much more difficult. Okay, and I'm not saying that the children were shot. I don't know. Full disclosure, I don't know. This is spirit, just a theory in relationship to, I think, the evidence that we can see in the public forum. Okay, but I think the emotional connection is something that's being overlooked here. Go ahead.
I was going to actually ask you if you think that that there was two different people because of the different manners that they were.
Yes,
Mike. No, you're right. You're right on target, Linda. That becomes such an intriguing difference, and then it makes you really want to start to look at what the physical evidence was that they recovered, even down to simple things like, was a raccoon recovered in that grave?
I asked that question.
Yeah, and so we see what appears to be the timeline for Tylee. And then a couple weeks later, it's time to remove JJ. And what were your thoughts on that particular set of circumstances, and especially things surrounding Alex carrying JJ in, him being either
The tender.
sleepy, drugged, or deceased, you know.
That's
what were your thoughts there, Linda?
I find it interesting how Melani Gibb was invited that weekend. I find it interesting that all of a sudden now JJ has become a zombie, because he was rated light before, but now he's rated not. And with his rating, it's hard to switch, according to Chad. But now Chad had to say, no, Lori, I made a mistake, but I'll get to that in a minute, what I believe, why he switched his mind. So he sets this up like, okay, now JJ's become a zombie. So Lori's going, see, Melanie, see, he's a zombie. Look at him. Look what he's doing. He's watching his movie nicely through the whole thing. This is what I say in my video. I'm like, honey, that ain't a zombie. That's a freaking miracle for a child to watch a movie through the whole thing and not move, right? Like I make jokes about that. It's not funny, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he turns into a zombie. Melani Gibb's there. I wonder if she was going to set Melani Gibb up to fail, only because now she's there. See, he's a zombie. See, he's a zombie. And Melanie's watching this. She's there with David. Sunday night, they do a podcast together. JJ goes with Alex, and Alex brings them back. They don't say the time, though, in the report. They don't talk about pings in this, which I find interesting, and they don't talk about Lori's pings, which I find interesting. But they talk about him coming back. David sees JJ on, carried by Alex on the shoulder. I don't know if he would be drugged or not. Some people are like, well, was he really sleeping? I don't know. However, I had a theory in my Secret Society video that maybe JJ was killed in the middle of the night, same as Tylee, because Tylee was shortly after 2:42 that Alex came back. I'm thinking maybe that it's around a 3 a.m. devil's hour, witching hour type thing. And, because they believe they're zombies. So 3 o'clock. One of the things that's very, very, very important for this date of September 23rd is that is Tammy's grandmother's birthday, who died. Her name's Lucille. Lucille has been talking to Chad from beyond the veil for years. He used Lucille as an excuse, as a reason to change Tammy's behavior. Tammy was playing a Frontierville video game on computer, and he comes to her and says, listen, I had a conversation from Lucille from beyond the veil. She told me you have to stop doing that, get off your butt and do the family tree. So what's interesting here is that's also Lucille's birthday. And Lucille, and he uses that to manipulate. So now what better way, because he's going, ooh, shoot, almost a year ago, I made that, light and dark rubric. I made a mistake. How am I going to manipulate Lori to believing it? I got it. Dead Lucille. Guess what, Lori? Dead Lucille came to me, and something very important happened. JJ has now become a zombie. Look at his behavior. Now, meantime, he's not on his meds. She has torn his daily routine apart. Now, kids thrive on daily routines. Kids on autism spectrum and ADHD and all that very much thrive on his routine. So she takes everything away. His dad dies. He's not going to the same school, which was specialized. She's putting him into a regular school. She's, everything's happening. His sister's gone for 2 weeks. So he's going through quite the crazy things. What is she doing? She's not helping him. She's all these things. So dead Lucille has to tell Chad something, in my opinion. He's become a zombie. They do the podcast. Uncle Alex takes care of it, just like he did before. Middle of the night, by morning time, holy moly, where's JJ? Oh, well, he was climbing on the cabinets and went on top of the fridge and knocked Jesus over onto the ground. I mean, and David's like, listen, I knew that was wrong. Like, I work on cabinets. Nothing looks like that. That I know of. That's anything's been tussled over, or anything like that. I want to speak to JJ. Then they leave. I want to know what time they left back home. I do want to know that. Yeah. Another thing is, somebody said they spotted Chad flying out to Arizona on the Wednesday before this all happened. I want to know when he came back, because they said they walked the track together. So there's all these little intricacies. I think that Chad had to manipulate the situation to make her turn her mind, because how else are you going to convince her when your rubric said that he's light? Well, that's just it. And the 23rd is the perfect time, which, by the way, I see little pattern thingies. It's a Monday. I don't know what it is. You guys probably know. I'm sure you guys know this. Why is it always a Monday? It seems like there's killings on the Monday. They go missing on Monday. I've covered 22 cases. I think Gannon Stelk, Monday. Evelyn, we don't know about Evelyn. Faye Sweatlick, a Monday. JJ Monday. Tylee Monday. And I don't know what it is about that. And I don't know why there's a 2-week gap. But I think it's because Chad had to come up with the reason that this is why he's a zombie. She's going, see, Melanie, I need you to confirm this is what you're seeing. And I was surprised. I thought, you know what? I wonder if she was going to throw Melanie under the bus. We heard Alex say that. Ooh, geez, I can't believe she threw you under the bus like that.
Yeah, you know, we see some interesting kinds of similarities with this behavior with Melanie, and situations where someone in a family kills another family member, and a parent, for instance, and they have the children make the discovery. A lot of times people like to have others make the discovery because it helps lend credibility to their story and their separation from the event that went on. So it's going to be interesting to watch that one unfold. Mm-hmm. But if we jump back to the timeline for a moment, we now have Joshua disappearing, and everyone's pretty cavalier about the fact that these children are just, you know, gone with some imaginary relative, and none of the relatives know. And so we see things progressing. And if we can look at the timeline here, mm-hmm. we then see a little bit of time pass. And I mean a little bit of time. And all of a sudden, Tammy Daybell is reporting, hey, somebody's shooting at me.
Yes.
And 10 days later, this gal dies of natural causes. And Chad, why he's still the beneficiary of a $400,000 policy is beyond me. Chris, talk to me about that, because that one, again, I guess I get too hung up on the money.
Remember the Flintstones, where everybody would jump in the car and just start, you know, the feet would drop down, everybody would take off.
Yep.
So we have the car is in motion, right? The problem is they're using their feet, and they have these gigantic, you know, rocks for wheels. So they're crushing things all along the path. And we see that, you know, we have indications of that, you know, in a variety of different places. I'm not completely convinced personally yet that Alex didn't kill or that Tylee wasn't killed off-site somewhere, or JJ, and packaged up, obviously, and brought to the ranch. Okay.
Could it have been apartment 107?
I don't know yet. I mean, I just think that's an interesting thought process. That, yeah, I mean, Mike and I, you know, we've you know, as we keep doing a little deeper dive into this thing. I mean, this is really the first time we've, you know, spent a little time on this, and you know, you are the best source of, you know, yeah, you've got this stuff dialed in, but, you know, we wanted another set of eyes on it, and we are grateful, by the way, Linda, for you being here tonight. By the way, before I forget, you know, you're fantastic. You know, your fans are fantastic. We love everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, as we grow and learn. But one of the things I think you'll learn about Mike and I is we're kind of a little bit slower, a little bit more level set in terms of, we're gonna do the old, as Mike says, and I'll let him tell everybody about it, but the old Columbo, but we have a lot of success that has been in our toolboxes, and that comes from stepping back and taking a look at this. So I'm not convinced yet that it's either A, at the house. Okay, I think we have solid evidence that Alex is there for that 4-hour time frame and that ping, et cetera. Okay, but remember, Tylee, she's a much more difficult type of victim to control.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, she's a teenager. She's got a phone. And you're right. We haven't seen much information about that, right?
Yeah.
So, and they've learned a lot, okay, as they've progressed in their criminal behavior, okay? So we have to ask ourselves about the 3 types of lives that we live. And this is, Mike, I'll kind of, tee it up for a second. What are the 3 lives we live? Maybe you can explain that to some of the viewers here.
Yeah, and then I want to just kind of wrap on this piece of it. But Linda, what we look at in the profiling process is a person has 3 portions of their life. They have this public persona that we see where we're putting on our best face. The 3 of us are doing this tonight. We're putting on this persona of who we are and who we strive to be. And then we have this private persona, which is the thing that maybe our spouse gets to see, some of our ugliness and our bad mornings and our I'm ornery about certain things. And then the side that very few people get to see is the secret side, or the secret persona, where this profiling evil was launched, this mindset where we see the actual Tasmanian devil in people come out and act out their fantasies and commit all this kind of mayhem. And so as we look at these individuals, we try to take with the players that we've talked about tonight, what is the public, private, and secret persona, and when are they actually playing, and what time do they step onto the stage? So it really gets exciting. And I wanted to just add one last kind of behavioral comment that Chris and I have been talking about, and that is, again, this is a learning process. If in fact this is a serial killer, which you could argue these are serial killers, there's a process of learning with every killing that occurs. And even when they think they've started to understand things and we get to the point that Vallow dies, Tylee presents a whole new range of emotion and challenge, because now I'm stepping into this victim, a child, someone I watch come up through the ranks. And if in fact your assessment, Chris, is correct, and I think it is, that she was more of a challenge than was anticipated, then what better way to solve the next problem, JJ, than with a barbiturate in a hamburger or something to get this kid into a comatose state where it's easier to commit a homicide. And we don't know, and we may see that. I don't know. Linda, what do you think of that little idea?
Yeah, I mean, we have a child who is on the spectrum. He was described as, hard to handle, 1 minute here, 1 minute there, 1 minute mad, 1 minute. So I can understand that maybe perhaps they would want to do that. And with the manner in which he was discarded, it could make sense that way, because, it would mean, I don't want to describe it too much. We don't need to get into that, but it does make sense because of the manner of what it was afterwards. It's easy, for lack of a better term. I don't mean any disrespect, but
right. Yeah, no.
They learned the first time.
Yeah. That's really the nature of humans, isn't it? Is that we evolve and get better. A young cub that's learning how to hunt as a mountain lion is stumbling along and missing lots of game, but they perfect their skill over time. and human predators are much like the animal out in the forest. If we could just pull up one last timeline, and actually we're going to keep it up for just a moment because we're going to kind of fast pace through this. But now all of a sudden I threw this in just to remind us that we had this attempted homicide on Brandon that kind of gets forgotten about. And I love the fact that Chris brought back the silencer as we try to figure out how could you actually kill someone in an urban or even a little bit of a country setting and not have somebody saying, wait, why is somebody shooting, you know? But now all of a sudden we have Cox who marries Pastenes. How do you say that word? Is it
Pastenes?
Pastenes.
Mm-hmm.
He marries Pastenes and he picks up her name for some reason. And the question I have again is back to the money is, was there a life insurance policy? But who is the final dangerous piece of this puzzle that we got to get rid of if these two crazy kids are going to go off into the sunset? And after this is all over with, and I lost my picture, but that was a picture of Lori and Chad in Hawaii on the beach toasting each other. How on earth can we bring these wacky people together when there's still one really dangerous piece of the puzzle that's out there? So
What are
that's a
your
question
thoughts?
for you.
What are your thoughts, Linda?
My thoughts on that, are we talking about Zulema or Alex?
All the above. Go where you want to.
Well, I feel like I want to go back to Brandon, but I won't at this point. It all points to Alex. Now, when I did a video on Alex a while ago when we first found out he died, and we didn't know much about Tammy. We knew, but we didn't know. And now there's chatter. So I may change my mind about Alex because there's a common denominator that basically, like you said, it's Chad and Lori. Now he's the third wheel. But I'm still not convinced yet. Ooh, let me rephrase that. I may teeter on either way about Alex, about what happened to him that day. There is a piece of information I'm going to keep to my chest that I may have learned that may have put somebody else in that room that day. Stay tuned for that video.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we won't discount that because you're right. He does have to be out of the picture. Okay, and again, he was utilized as a tool
Mm-hmm.
for the ultimate scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate scheme was, okay, well, I mean, we can say that the motive here was money, okay, ultimately, but I will question that motive in relationship to ultimately the delusion of this grandioso life, okay, an eternal progression of some sort, okay, this godhood. Okay, so remember, we're talking about the alter ego here. Now we're talking about id. Okay?
Right.
Id progresses himself to the point, or herself, okay, to the point of we're going to need money. We're going to need something, to keep this fantasy moving forward. Okay, there's a whole bunch of things taking place here. The pictures of the puzzle that start to come together pretty rapidly, because Alex, I look at Alex as the patsy. He's intelligent, he's cool as a cucumber, he can get the job done. Okay, so we have to look at his life,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd have to look at some of the patterns and some of his suspectology. Well, what kind of training did he have? What kind of situation, was he involved in? And if you think about that for a moment, even just digressing real fast, think about John Bonet, okay, and the murder weapon. Okay? The murder weapon is a garrote. How many in this audience tonight, show me in the chat, this is kind of a setup question, obviously, because everybody in here is probably going to know. But I've been in rooms with homicide investigators, many of them, and asked you, how many people in here know what a garrote is? Okay. And yeah, exactly. You get Mike. Okay. But you think about that. Okay. And then you think about a mother. And then you look at the autopsy report and you find out that weapon was utilized 4 separate times. And then you start thinking about sexual deviant behavior and autoerotic behavior. Okay. And then you start processing that into the suspectology of the mother or the father or the brother and say, okay, do they understand what a garrote is? Let's check that box first. Okay. If the answer is no, then we haven't asked the whys. Okay. So we have to go back in this situation and we have to look at Alex, and it's easy to say, yeah, Alex whacked this guy. He probably whacked this person. He probably whacked this person. But now the big question is why? We know how he did it. Okay. So that's all the dots that we've connected here tonight. Okay. And that you've been connecting for, months and months and months. Okay. But why? Okay. We can come out on the other side and say, hey, it's because of the money and they had this big grand tour here. Okay. But I'm going to submit to you something even more deviant. Okay. And Mike's writing a book. It's coming out pretty soon about some cult that he worked years ago. How many victims did you have, Mike? In your, yeah. And I'll let him talk about it because
we'll talk about that at some point. But,
right.
I'm just wondering, Linda, if you could maybe summarize your thoughts after looking at this from the outside, just where you think we are on this whole investigation.
Okay, so before I get to that, can I just comment on Alex for a sec?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
What I find is interesting is Alex takes on Zulema's name. He moves back to Arizona to be with her, I'm guessing. So he's living with her. He has no paper trail of him living anywhere because he's living with Zulema. He doesn't tell his mom or his sister that he's moving back. She says that on an interview. I didn't even know Alex moved back to Arizona or got married. So I find it just really interesting, his behavior at that point now all of a sudden is taking on Zulema's last name, moving to Arizona, having nothing in the place of this 107. And Chris. And so anyways, I just wanted to talk about that first. So
no, that's such a brilliant thing that we skipped over. When we were children, we called that do-overs. When we're criminals, we call that just taking on a new identity. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got the son of the gal calling 911, and right. He says, "Yeah, my mom's boyfriend." I mean, they haven't even made they haven't even made the emotional connection yet, right?
Yeah.
And Stephanie, thank you so much. We gave you a shout out earlier. We appreciate you very much. Yeah, good awesome point. But okay, so that was the first part. You want to go back to Alex.
Okay, yeah, that's what I had to say.
That's all right. What's your other take? What's your other thought process here?
So the question was, what in total? What I think?
Yeah.
Oh, well, bottom line is, I believe these were all premeditated, including Charles. I believe the common denominator, for sure, in my opinion, is Lori and Chad. I think that there was that email. I know I beat a dead horse on this, but I really do feel like that was a coded email.
It could be, yeah.
And the BAT references in there, the insurance references in there, how they're going to convince the audience about it and essentially, have the book a success. And it was, to her smiling after. I think that's why I wanted to go back to Charles, is because Chad Lori, Alex were the inner circle. However, I believe that there's a little bit of another layer, kind of like, you know, those little gumballs, like the gobstoppers, you know, with the rings. It's like that. It's like another layer to it that I believe more people are involved. Maybe not to the degree as them, because I believe they are the inner circle, but there's the outer layers.
The niche.
Yeah, I
can say it.
There you go. It's just tragic. I feel like Lori knew who to keep close to her and knew who to keep away. I think her relationship with her oldest son, with Colby, she knew not to tell him how Charles died, not to tell him where she's moving. I think she knew that he'd call her out on her crap. And I think she obviously knew that. That's her son. And she knew that. So I pray that these guys are going to get a lot more charges than what they're having. I feel like Chad, this isn't his first rodeo. Only recently have I started realizing, since the children have been found, that, oh my gosh, this isn't his first rodeo, including the women he's manipulated. I hate to say this, but I would not be surprised at this point if we find out he's killed before or close to it. Only from what I dig. I just think he's just master manipulator. I mean, you don't get to this point and be able to manipulate so well without having practice, in my opinion. And
or you get to the practice, right? You
get to the that's right. Right.
You got to drive to the field.
Yeah, you're not going to wake up one. Yeah, I feel like with all the manipulations, I do want to mention one thing that is very glaringly obvious to me about his physical appearance, because he turns into something Lori wants him to be. He turns from a guy who is overweight. I've seen some pictures of him, not really fashionably forward, to all of a sudden losing this weight, changing his hair, changing his clothing, and chameleoning, that's the word, my own word, to what she wants. And yet she's changing to what he wants. So this is my interpretation. I believe there's a lot of code. I believe there's a lot of pacts made. And I was actually worried on Doomsday last week that there might have been something more to that day that we didn't know about that would have been executed, for lack of a better term. I was starting to get concerned about that. Happier that they're in jail. But I hope that they do get more charges slapped on them. I hope you guys can reassure me that it's coming.
Well, let me just tee up a couple of thoughts as we get towards just a fantastic evening. And Julie, thank you so much, Julie Krecky, for jumping in and cheat do more. I love it. This is good. So let's look at Chad as a, not from a psychological aspect, right? Because all the doctors are going to sit with him and say, yeah, he's either, a bag of chips or, he really does know what he's doing. Okay. So that said, let's just step back for a second and think about some of the personality traits that he would have to be this master manipulator, which he is. Okay. He's charismatic. He's dynamic. He writes these books. Okay. Everybody, falls into the books. Okay. He is very able to tell the stories. He's having these visions. So we can go through this whole path of some of the normal behaviors of, human existence, right? And then you kind of add this spiritual cult dynamic in terms of how he kind of, takes it over here. But what's interesting is one of the things that we're not considering is the type of personality that is drawn also to that, who is already on that road. Okay. This is the Melanie's. She's probably a very wonderful human being. She loves everything, very trusting. She doesn't follow her sixth sense like you do. All women have it. You gals all have it. And I've mentioned this before. You follow that gut and you're always right. And Mike and I will tell you about that later. Okay. You're always right. Okay. Especially about men. Okay. You're right. Okay. And I tell my wife this all the time. You follow that gut because you're on target. Okay. But let's look at a chat. Okay. Versus a Barry Morphew. Okay. Because I want to talk about Barry just for about 2 seconds and compare him to Chad. Okay. And look at the dynamics here. Okay. Okay. You look at the family dynamics. Okay. Yet we both have victims on both sides of these dynamics. Okay. Now you see through the eyes of an investigator. Okay. Because investigators and criminal profilers have to look through the eyes of a couple of different lenses. Okay. Because the cases that are presented to them may have dynamics that everybody can see 6 to 8, 10, 12 months down the line. Okay.
Right.
But as it's unfolding, okay, you have to see through another set of lenses. Okay. And I hope as we, develop more and more friendships and collaborations going forward, as in channels and trying to help, solve some of these situations and educate and analyze. That's kind of what our tagline is up at the top, right? As we go through this, if you look at Chad and you really say, well, how sophisticated is this guy? Okay. Is he just kind of off and he's got a religious following here? Okay. And then you start looking through the lenses of Chad. Okay. And you start seeing him, how he starts to manipulate, but at the same time, able to project, okay, a very stable individual. Okay. Mm-hmm. He even sits there I saw the trial, the hearing the other day. He sat there like, hey, it's me, Chad. What are you guys doing? Okay.
With my red tie on.
Exactly. And so, I'm really curious to continue to learn from you and see what happens coming up here. But I would be amiss, also, just to kind of step back for a minute, okay, and really see that what are the Chandler cops? What do they got up their sleeves? Why did they reopen that investigation? Why did they pull Tammy? Take her body back up, right? Yeah. There's a lot of forensics work. There's a lot of lab work. There's a lot of, things that are taking place, okay, that are going to present to us a whole new set of facts, potentially. Okay?
And they changed the detective too.
Right. Right. And our old saying in our line of work was, you're not worth your salt unless you can get a priest to confess. Okay.
So let me ask
thank you, Kate.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Kate. So let me just step back a little bit and ask you a couple of questions. And Bambi, thank you. That's so kind of you to do this. So let's go back to the very beginning. We're not going to talk about a couple of the first husbands. One, I think, probably is wiping his forehead every morning, the very first one, because I haven't read anything that he's not deceased.
Woo!
But just tell me if there's a common denominator. When we finally get to Ryan, is there a common denominator between Chad? Has Chad become anything in Tammy's life? We can't really see it, can we?
Nope.
Yeah, and some people are speculating that he may have died as a result of that too, which makes an interesting question. But is there evidence to support that, in your opinion?
With Joseph,
Yeah.
the more I learn, the more I think we should take a look.
Yeah. Was there an insurance policy?
From my understanding,
Yeah.
yes,
So
there's
it becomes kind of an interesting nexus. And then we move into Vallow, which I think we all agree has such intriguing things happening. We look at the children. The nexus is really clear that there is a relationship, and obviously with bodies being recovered on the property. With Vallow, there's certainly a financial gain that comes from that, even though the marriage was long since over. And I find that interesting anyway. Tammy Daybell, I find that so interesting that there is a financial gain to someone who's now married to someone entirely different, unless it was somehow structured that it was supposed to be passed through to children, and we don't know that. But we do know that he is named as a beneficiary. Most would do something called stirpies, where they would pass through to the children those monies. So that was kind of an interesting thing. So you're thinking about all these, Linda, and then we have Bordeaux getting shot at. We have Alex then suddenly dying, Tammy Daybell dying, all these people dying around. I mean, I'm counting like 4 or 5 people in their life that have died in the last couple of years. And I'd just like to ask our listeners, could someone other than a mass event where they all died in an auto accident or something, can anyone not, just don't comment for a minute unless you've had 5 people in your family die from weird circumstances in the last couple of years. That is a huge thing, and we'll watch and see if somebody happens to pop something up. I think that's incredibly powerful. And then thinking of all those people, Linda, I just want to hear from you. How on earth a couple can move to Hawaii, have drinks and marriages on the sand with the birth certificates of their 2 children who can't be found, and using the debit card of their daughter to pay for their wedding. How on earth is this possible and makes sense?
Those pictures in Hawaii of Chad playing that stupid ukulele and her hulaing on the beach, I look at that and my heart just breaks, because they know those children are gone and they know they were part of it. And yeah, she has the kids' ID. She uses the iPad. This is one of my patterns I noticed. She uses the iPad from the school. If you guys haven't seen my video, I'll send it to you once I figure out which one it was. Every time something happens, she climbs on this iPad, connects to this school app immediately the next day, within 1-2 days, and it's a pattern. She goes and does that. So that's a side note. Maybe we can talk about that on a different time on my show or something. We can have you guys on, and we'll have you on anyways with some different things. But sidetrack.
We'd be honored.
But these kids, yeah, I mean, they know everything that's going down. She's using Tylee's phone in October, in September on her birthday, November, December, like all these time. And she's talking to people like no problem is no big deal. She's asking Melani Gibb to help lie where these kids are. And so these pictures, her in court and her demeanor in court is disgusting. Smirking and knowing that she thinks she got away with murders. in my opinion. And you have her, it's just like, it's, people are seeing this and they're angry. They're angry. We're all angry. We want to see justice. To see her just smirking. I think that's the biggest thing, is just, she knows what happened, and yet here she is smirking. And in court numerous times, Chad knows. And if you go back and look at what like Chris mentioned, he saw him in court, you can see his demeanor. Like it's, like an everyday, not a biggie kind of thing. And I don't know. It's a whole other level. I don't know what to say other than it's disgusting behavior, knowing that they're planning a wedding and Charles paid for their wedding. How can you use a dead guy's credit card and that not be freaking fraud? I don't get it. I mean, here, Charles will pay for it. I'll just order stuff on Amazon. Here's another thing I found. The P.O. box that she had in Sugarland, whatever it was in
Texas,
or in Idaho. There's something in Idaho she had. She also has Charles listed as a P.O. box number, and Alex, all the same P.O. box. I'd like to know more about that. Mm-hmm. But how can you use these things? So people are watching this, and me too, and we're just going, wait a minute. Self-defense? I don't think so. She's taken somebody else's rental car. Pretty sure she's not allowed to do that. Then you're looking at here, okay, why is she slapped for, hey, you're probably going to see 5 years, maybe not, and we're going, what? You can see the girl in the Vanessa Guillen case, she's getting 20 years for her concealment or her tampering with evidence. Yeah, Lori's sitting with 5 years and not getting these other things. So people are going, wait a minute. She's still stealing money. She's collecting money from the government while these children are dead. How can she get away with that, or is she?
Well, and that's important. These are great points that you're pointing, but it's important though. Okay, just as a thought process, right? Get 3 pieces of paper, and put them up on the wall. Okay, because you broke down her secret life. You broke down her private or her public persona.
Right.
Okay. And then we have some speculation in relationship to her personal persona. Okay. So you need to break down all 3 of those. Okay. And look at the deceptive behaviors, i.e., which you've just pointed out very, masterfully. Put them on a piece of paper. Okay. The next thing is start looking at those public behaviors, i.e., her public life, Chad playing the ukulele, all the madness. Okay. But then you have the secret stuff on the other side. What brought that madness on? Why did that? And once you have that whole list, okay, go to each one of those behaviors and ask yourself why. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what you're doing here. And then on that 3rd piece of paper, put your answers. Okay. Well, I think this, and this. Okay. And then ask yourself, why did you come up with each of those answers? And then start eliminating all the really ones that just don't make any sense. Okay. At that point, okay, when you come to that conclusion, okay, you will see the devil, okay, in the secret life. Okay. And this is who you're describing in terms of persona, okay? Somebody who is very capable of projecting very skillfully, and Mike will dissect this, I know he will, very skillful at projecting this public persona, okay? You called it the chameleon, okay? These are traits that are very skillfully learned through multiple other, we'll call them micro behaviors. Yeah. Okay. From an analytic side. Mike, weigh in on that, on your thought process.
No, I mean, that's a discussion for another night. Linda, I think as we wind this down, I'd love to hear I want you to pull out your crystal ball and tell us what's going to happen at the end of the day with this, in your opinion.
At the end of the day, I think we're going to be surprised. I think maybe now that I'm seeing a little bit more into it, maybe it's going to be pleasantly surprised and we'll be happy. There's a few things that I'm noticing in court that I think is well played from Rob. And I think he's taken out the excuses. I don't know at the end of the day, but I hope there's more hope than anything. But I think we're going to be surprised. And I think the best is yet to come in terms of what they actually have on them. Yeah. I did notice in these documents, wait, where's Lori's pings in this? How come they haven't talked about that yet? Where's this? How come this isn't there? So I think that's going to come out. And I think, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think it's going to come out. And then we're going to have more work to dive into in the 1,900 pages or whatever it is in the discovery.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
There will be a lot. Well, we think, well, I'm not going to speak for Chris. I'll say that I think we are only seeing the tip of the prosecutorial iceberg.
Yeah.
And that a number of people will enjoy justice at the end of the day, even those who died unexpectedly. And I just really look forward to that happening.
Yes.
And as I pass this off to Chris, I want to just say, Linda, thank you. It's been so fun, and we're going to do this again. I want to thank Jacqueline and all of the amazing people who have been on tonight listening and weighing in. We've been reading your comments. We look forward to having an opportunity to respond to some of them later. Again, please be pushing that subscribe button. You are the reason we're doing this, so we hope that you'll continue to support us. And Linda, thank you again to you and your listeners who have come over, and we hope that they will be signing up and that we can share some time with you, with them as we go on. And Chris, as you wrap up, I want to just end with us telling folks what is coming down the pike in the next couple of weeks, because we got some really cool stuff coming, Linda, and we hope that you'll be watching, and we might even sneak you in for a little celebrity bomb once in a while. So Chris, what are your thoughts as we wrap up?
You know, I think, well, first of all, you know, Linda, in all sincerity, again, we are grateful that not only you, but your followers, you know, have taken such an interest in justice for, you know, not only the children, but, you know, the families here, right? And, you know, in coming from the law enforcement environments that Mike and I both come from in public safety, you know, there are dispatchers, there are like your husband is a paramedic. Okay. I mean, you know, God bless him. Okay. We are grateful for his service. You know, the police officers, the detectives, the court systems, all of these other systems, and all of these people that go into this business because they had a passion, and they have a passion. Like you have a passion, you have a gift. Okay. And, you know, as we started this evening, I said, you know, and Mike and I talked about this before before we even met you, was, you know, we would have died for somebody that had the analytical thought process that, you know, you have, because, you know, you make the job so much easier to just give us, all of us, something to think about. Okay. But as we go forward, you know, all of us, as this case, you know, unfolds itself, I think you'll see the collapse of all, both of these cases coming together with both Chad and, Lori. They're not going to want to do this, right? One of these, their hope, and I think, good, strategy from the DA side is they're going to hope they can put a little more pressure and see who pops, who's going to talk first, right? If it's going to be Lori or if it's going to be Chad, right?
Yeah.
Let's reserve, bingo card number, column 5 for that one. Okay. Where everybody in the room, in the evil family and in It's a Crime family, and I shouldn't be calling it the evil family. Why am I doing that, Mike? But, in our family over here at PE, okay, let's just kind of, put a bingo card out there somewhere and see, let's see who's going to pop, who's going to roll first. Okay. I think we got to keep our eye, and you're on it. We got to keep our eye on Chandler. I think that investigation, they know that Alex killed Charles. Okay. And they also know that Lori put herself in the house when that shot went off. Okay. You know how I know they know that? I know it. Okay? Because she said it. Okay?
Yep.
The best evidence in the world is right here. Okay.
Yep.
This right here is so powerful for us as investigators and an investigative family. This is the best evidence for us. Okay. Let it all come in. Okay. So what I would like to ask you is, did you see we invited Barry to come on the channel and talk to us about his anniversary coming up and his sweet wife, Suzanne, who's been missing?
I heard about that. I heard you
What
did.
are your thoughts?
I think it would be great for Barry to go on there.
Well, and we think it would be great, maybe even to go on your channel. But
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually am putting together a little video for Barry, or about Barry, and I haven't in a while on the Suzanne Morphew case, but I've been watching a few other channels. I watched yours, I watched Lauren Sharf, and I thought, I haven't put out a video yet on Tyson's interview on Barry. And I was thinking that that's what I would like to do, is spend some time on it and, start digging into it a little bit and get it up there. And
fantastic. Okay, everybody, you heard it here first, right?
You did
subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to It's a Crime, okay? Because I'm telling you, put your seatbelt on. Barry, we have 2 invitations now. We have 2 invitations to you.
Great.
Okay. And you know what? We want to be sensitive to the family as a whole, to the girls, to dad, to mom, okay, and to the rest of the extended family, Barry's mom, okay, and Suzanne's family. We want to be very sensitive, but we also want to invite you to a safe environment. Let's put the word out about your sweet wife. We want to find solutions for you and help you process, how we can make it better and help you find her, because we know you're looking to find her. And reach out to Linda, reach out to Mike, myself, reach out to Lauren. But let us help in with the upcoming events of your anniversary coming up August 5th. Let's all keep Suzanne in our prayer up till her anniversary coming up here, and hopefully he reaches out to you. And so with that, I'm grateful again to meet you, and thank you so much for your time, for being here this evening. We are extremely grateful for this.
Thank you guys. You guys are great to chat to and with, and you know what? I'll have you guys on my channel. I'm sure everybody would love that. We can discuss, a couple different cases, maybe my secret society video that I did, have a little chit chat about that. And I'd love to do some continuing stuff, and you guys come hang out and we do this. This is great.
We'd like that very much.
I like that a lot.
If I want to just pull up one last slide to tell you what we got coming down the pike, Linda, and everyone else. So next week on Thursday, we're going to do a broadcast on Robert Ben Rhodes. This is a serial killer who terrorized the United States years ago. I had the opportunity to work on that investigation, and this killer is responsible for somewhere between 50 and 300 murders, and that's the speculation. He was convicted on a number of murders, but we're going to talk about his victim selection process. We're going to talk about the way in which he committed those crimes. We're going to bring on a special guest. We're going to bring on the police officer who arrested him, who we have worked with over the years, and relive that experience of capturing this offender who had a victim in his vehicle chained and was torturing at the time this officer rescued her. It is a chilling and yet compelling case that talks about, as you've looked at some of our videos on the victim risk continuum, it takes that victim risk continuum to a high level where you can really start to understand the processes there. And I think you're going to be amazed. And then we're going to finish it with a scientist talking about how we can look at missing persons across the United States and tie those cases together so that we have the probable victims that this offender was responsible for. I think you're going to enjoy it. Chris and I are going to delve into that and talk through it. And then what are we going to do, Chris, the following week?
Well, we have the Valentine's Day killer out of Southern California. And this is a fascinating case in of itself. We're going to have the lead investigator on and how the new cutting edge genetic DNA played a role. And we're hoping you folks can tune in with us, but we've got them coming. And so we're going to go over that case and how they were able to unwind and solve this case. I think it was 20 years. How old was this caper, Mike? I forget how old the caper was.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was in 80. Well, we'll resolve that then. And you're going to really like this one because
love it.
We had the DNA specialist who broke the Golden State serial killer case on with us, and she was responsible for helping guide this investigation. So that's, I guess, one of the benefits of being an old grizzly cops that happen to know lots of other old grizzly cops. We're able to call out some old favors. Liz, I just saw that you had made a donation. Thank you so much. And Jacqueline, thank you so much. And then on the 20th of August, we're going to do a live show like we've done tonight with Linda. But Linda, this is going to be amazing, and we need to have your help and every channel's help in pushing people here. We're going to bring on a retired police officer who now is running Operation Underground Railroad. We have been friends with him, and we met with him today on the phone and talked about the absolute horror plight that they face every day in trying to rescue children all around the world. And we'll be bringing on operators from Thailand and from the U.S. to talk about cases that they're working. But the purpose of this isn't just to say what an amazing job Operation Underground Railroad is. It's to also teach some principles. And Chris, what are we going to focus on in that discussion?
Yeah. And Dre, Latina, thank you so much for your support. We're grateful. So this we would recommend every parent, every mother, every father, pull the popcorn out, sit down. But what we're going to talk about is real life, scenarios in relationship, how to protect your children. Mike and I are passionate about this particular subject, not only, professionally, but as parents ourselves. I mean, we have 4 kids, and, my sweet wife, who is, the love of my life, she has just done a fantastic job with our children. But what we did is we taught them, some of the principles that we're going to be talking about with some of the guys in Operation Railroad. So you don't want to miss it. And I know the guys that are coming. Mike will tell you these are the real deal. They are in operations right now, undercover, and buying children all around the world. So we're going to talk about how to prevent that from happening to your child, and I think it will be, worth your time to come join and visit with us. And we're going to open it up to a lot of just chit chat, right, Mike? I mean,
yeah, we're going to keep it open, and we're going to be watching for people's questions. We're not going to have a canned discussion. We're going to try to make this something that you walk away with and you are empowered to help your children be safe, because the exploitation and the trafficking that's going on in this world is absolutely disgusting and out of control. And you're going to find that these are heroes that never get congratulated, and their shelf life, because of what they experience, is extremely short. And this is going to be a really compelling night. So we hope you would, Linda, support us and get your listeners and everyone else. If you will just talk this up, it's August 20th. It'll be 6:00 Pacific time, and it's going to be live. And we're going to push all of the super chat money and everything else that we can over to Operation Underground Railroad at the conclusion. This is the right thing to do, and these people need our support. And we're just honored to have friends that work in that business. And as we wrap up, how can we not thank Linda and It's a Crime and being with us and spending 2.5 hours? That's just absolutely incredible. And we got to call out a couple of major sponsors, Nearmap, who gives us the ability with high resolution imagery to do the maps that we do, Trace Labs, the Cold Case Foundation, and man, a big shout out to Circuit 3 and all of the work they do to produce these and try to make us look somewhat good. So with that, we thank you so much for giving us your time tonight, and we hope that these are valuable. Please send us your recommendations, and we'll continue to do our part. And again, Chris, I don't know what I'd do without you, brother.
Thanks,
and Linda,
Mike.
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.